Hello everyone, this is the 34th video of my database management systems practical video series. Without further ado, let's go to our question list. In the previous video, we established the relationship between our tables in the ER diagram. So in this video, let's open the question 34, and in this video we are going to insert some details to the tables here. This is the same old context about the question started from question 28. So I think it's not necessary to read this context again. Let's move on to the first part of the question. Enter the data in the table below into the user type table. Okay, and these are the details. The user type ID and the user type name, employee, customer, and then supplier. Okay. If you watch the previous video, here's the ER diagram. We created this ER diagram and the relationships, but we didn't create the database using this ER diagram. So before entering the data, we have to create this ER diagram. We have to convert this ER diagram to an actual database. To do that, we can click on the database button, and then here's a option called forward engineer, and that will create a database using this ER diagram details. So let's click on the forward engineer button and then the next button. Here you don't have to do anything here. Let's click on the next button, and this is the DDL query which will execute and create our database. These are the details we stored graphically, or we create graphically in our ER diagram. So let's click on the next button, and here you can see it executes the forward engineering scripts, and then our forward engineering process is finished successfully. Now we can close this part, and let me open the ADSQL browser. This is another software we used to graphically view the details in our MySQL server. Now we can easily view our database. Let me refresh this one. Let's click on the connection and then refresh this one. Here you can see our database is created now. Earlier shoe center, and here are the tables inside the database, and first we have to enter details to the user type table, and this is the table. Here you can see our data types and the attribute names, and you can see the user ID is auto incremented, so we don't have to enter the user ID by ourselves. We only have to enter the user type name. For that, I'm going to use a query, an insert query. I'm not going to insert these details graphically. I'm going to use queries to do this part. Okay, here's the first data. Insert into, and we have to mention the database name. Earlier shoe center, and in that database, here's the table. We are going to enter the details, user type, and in this within these brackets we have to mention what is the attribute we are going to enter the details. We can specify attribute and store the details into only that attribute. If you didn't mention this part, you have to enter the details to all the attributes, all two attributes in our user type table. Okay, now we can mention the values here, and first one is, let's see that one, employee. These are the user types: employee, supplier, and employee, customer, and supplier. Okay, first one is employee, and let's execute this one and check whether this query works or not. Here I execute this one, and you can see one row affected. That means our query is executed without errors. Now we can refresh this one. You can see employee value is stored in our user type table. Okay, now we can repeat the same method to enter other details. Okay, insert into customer here. Let's execute this one too. Okay, our data is recorded here, and insert into earlier shoe center. Okay, and this time supplier. Now we enter all the details to the user type table. Now let's move on to the second one. Enter the data of the table below in city table. Okay, now these are the cities: Colombo, Kandy, Kurunegala, Mathale and Gampaha. And also let me show you that one. In the city table, you can see the city ID is auto incremented, so we don't have to enter that attribute 2. So we can change the query, insert into earlier shoe center, and this time city, and this is the detail, or this is the attribute in city table. So city name. Okay, let's put this attribute name within 2 question marks and mention the values. There's only one value. The first one is Colombo. Okay, now let's execute this one and see whether this query works or not. Okay, you can see one row affected. Now let's go to the data here, refresh the table. You can see that Colombo city is recorded in the city table. Now we can use the same method. Insert into Kandy. Now let's enter all the details and see whether all the details are here or not. Okay, insert into Kurunegala, and you can also enter or create many insert queries in this query tab. You don't have to write a single one and enter or execute that query and then write a single one. We can create more than one query. So here's the second one, insert into Mathale, insert into Gampaha. Okay, now let's execute these 3 queries. You can see 3 rows affected. Now our 3 queries are executed without errors. Now our details are here. Okay, and we completed the second part. Let's move to the third part. Enter the data in the table below into the gender table. Okay, there are 2 genders, male and female, and also let me show you the gender table. The gender ID is also auto incremented, so we don't have to enter that data. Now let's clear these ones and insert into this time earlier shoe center, gender and gender name. Okay. And values are first one male, and let's write the second one too. Insert into earlier shoe center, gender, gender name, two values, and this time female. Okay. Now execute this. Let's execute these 2 queries. You can see 2 rows affected. Now let's go to the data table and refresh this one. You can see male and female are here. Now let's go to the table here. Okay, this is the 4th one, and you can see these are the details of the users. So Here you can see the user type ID. First, number 1 means he is an employee, and second person, Sandun, and his user type ID is 2. That means he is a customer. So like that we can identify these users separately using this user type, and let's enter these details into our database. Let's go to our database here. Now let me show you the user type table before entering the data, and the user type ID is also auto incremented. So we only have to enter the attributes, first name, last name, contact number, and other attributes, and not the user ID. Okay, let's clear these queries and write a new insert query. Insert into earlier DB, and this time user table, and we have to mention the attributes, first name, and then last name, let's go to our data here. Contact number, status, user type ID, contact number, status, user type ID, and gender ID and address ID. Okay, gender ID, and address ID. Okay, these are the attributes, and let's mention the values here. First one is Thilan Tennakon. Okay, Thilan, that's the first name, and Tennakon. Okay, and this is the mobile number, and status is 1, and user ID is 1. Sorry, this is not user ID, this should be user type ID. Okay, status and user type ID is number 1, and then the gender is 1, he's a male, and address ID is number 1. But before executing this one, there should be an error. Let me show you that one. Here you can see the address ID. The address ID is a foreign key. So if you can remember, we need to enter details to this address table. Here address table is empty. So if we try to enter details to a address ID in the user table, which foreign from the address table, there will be an error. So we have to enter the details to the address table first, and then enter the details to the user table. So let's cut this query and paste that to a notepad. Okay, here's the query. Now we can use that query later, but before that we have to enter the details to address table. So let's skip this data and come to the fifth part of the question. Enter the data into the table below in the address table. So this is the first one, address ID, number, street 1, street 2, and city ID. We enter the data to city table, so there will be no errors when we enter these IDs. Okay, now let's go to our ADSQL browser, and let me show you the address table quickly. The address ID is also auto incremented, so we don't have to enter that detail. Sorry, not that query. Now this is the insert query. Insert into early issue center, and this time address, and these are the attributes we are going to enter the data. First one is number, street 1, street 2, and city ID. Number, street 1, and street 2, and then the city ID. Okay, values. Okay, these are the values. Let's go to the question. Okay, here's the number, and here's the street 1, and this is the street 2, and this is the city ID number 2. Okay, let's test whether these details are correct or not. Here you can see one row affected, and let's refresh this one. Okay, these are the details. Now we can use this query to write to enter other details. Here's the first one. Insert into earlier show center, and this is the address. Let's enter other insert queries and execute them once. So let's write the second one. Insert into earlier show center and address. Okay, let me enlarge this window. Okay, here's the second one, and here's the third one. Insert into earlier issue center address. Okay, this is the third one, and insert into earlier issue center address. Okay, city ID is number 4, and these are the 4 queries, and let's execute them. Okay, you can see 4 rows affected. Now we can refresh the data in the address table, and these are the 5 data of the 5 users, so 5 addresses of the 5 users. Now we can use the query we saved in our notepad and enter the details to use a table, which is this table. Okay, now let's clear these queries. Now copy the data in our notepad. Okay, now enter them here. Okay, this is the insert query of the first record to our user table. Now let's execute this one and check whether this one is correct. You can see 1 row affected. Now this time let's see the user table and refresh this one. Okay, our data is here without any errors because we enter the address ID. Let me show you here. This is the address ID of to the address table. Now we can use this query to enter other details. Here's the second one. Insert into earlier show center, and this time use again. Okay, again insert into earlier show center and user. and again insert into. Okay, these are the details of Hasita Gunavansh, and this is the fifth one, insert into. Insert into relation center and user, and these are the details of Amanda Moses, and here's the last one, insert into. Okay, these are the details of all the users. Now we can execute this query. Okay, there's an error. I misplaced the I changed the places of the gender ID and the address ID. I misplaced them, and now we can execute this one here. 5 rows affected. Now we can go to the data, user table data, and refresh this one. Okay, here you can see these are the details, and the user IDs are changed. This is because these data are automatically incremented. I attempt to insert the data more than one time. That's why it shows the user ID as 11, 12, 13 after the number 2. Actually, that's not an error. So we enter the details to our user table and also the address table. Now there's only one table left, system login. There are only 2 details here. You can see in the user table there are only 2 employees here, Thilan Tennakon and then the Amanda Moses. Okay, then Amanda Moses. Okay, and these are the credentials of for the system login for those 2 employees. That's why there are only 2 records here. Now let's enter these details. Okay, let me show you the system login table. Before entering the data, you can see the login ID is auto incremented, and before start to insert the data, let me show you the user table again. Here I changed the user IDs to the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It showed 11, 12, 13. I changed them to these numbers. Okay, now let's clear this one, and this time insert into earlier DB and system login. These are the values: username, password, and user ID. Username, password, and user ID. Okay, and here are the values. Let's go to the question here. Username is the name Thilan and password Thilan at 070, and user ID is 1. Okay, let's enter that details. Thilan at 070, and ID is number 1. User ID is number 1. Okay, here's the details of the first user. Now let's execute this query. You can see 1 row affected, and let's see the data in the data table. Okay, now let's write another insert query to insert the next user's system login credentials. Insert into radiation center and system login, username, password, and user ID. Okay, here are the values. First one, the second person's credentials are username Amanda and Amanda at hashtag 682 and user ID is 6. Okay, Amanda and Amanda at hashtag 682 and user ID is number 6. Okay, let's execute this one. Okay, one row affected, and here our data is stored in our table, the system login table. Okay, we complete the 6th part of the question, and that's the last part, and I think that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.